Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the UK Games Expo over here at the NEC in the UK. We've got a Digimon Regional. I've eaten a cookie not that much smaller than my face. We've all had a nice good rest, and we are ready for round 5, the second half of the Regional. And we've got something a little bit different going on. Now, don't get me wrong. One of these decks is a deck we've already seen so far. It's very much a deck we were expecting. It's one of the top contenders in the format. The other one... it's a deck which has been rumblings about. It's a deck that I know has been gaining in popularity, but certainly if you look at the results of the regionals we've seen so far, it's not been one of the top choices. When I was making my list of decks I was expecting for this tournament, Cherubimon was not on that list. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a very good deck. It is, of course, a very good deck. But, the official Digimon Twitter tweets out all of the top 8 decks from these regionals as they're going on. This is not a deck that has really made its way onto the radar as a whole. Everybody knows it's a good deck, but it is one of the less usual choices, I think is fair to say. So, we're going to be rolling off here. We've got James Sidon and we've got David Hubbard. And remember, just because a deck isn't seen as one of the top choices does not mean it's not actually going to be a phenomenal deck, because, of course, it's at 4-0, and that's kind of important. If a deck is starting 4-0, that generally means it's it's a pretty good deck, I think is probably fair to say. So it does look like we've started off. James is going to have an Analog Youth there, and we got an Uppermon there as well. And we see David. David is, of course, playing the blue-green Imperialdramon deck. This is one of the ones of which we are very familiar. So we see a Vmon coming down. It's going to search for a Digimon, and this is one we've seen, time and time again. It is something which it's going to keep coming. It's a deck which is going to keep coming. And Vmon is one of those ones, because you've got so many free-type Digimon in the deck, it is absolutely something you need to keep playing with. It's one that is, there's 2 on the field already. It's something which is very much going to keep coming. So, have we got anything else? Do we just have the 2 Vmon, or is there something else coming here as well? So we see a second Analog Youth here. I'll be honest with you, this is not necessarily what we were expecting. It's not the way you want to start the game. Yeah, double Analog Youth. Look, I'm not saying Analog Youth's a bad card. It's not. It's a good card that sees playing a bunch of decks. But it's not the only thing you want to do. You want to have a little bit more. We see the X-Vmon, that jamming Digimon we've seen so many times before coming down for David. And it's not, it's not the world's best start, but we've got a Vmon, we've got an X-Vmon. There is enough there to make us go, hang on a second, that's not a terribly bad start. We can roll with this. So, is he just content? Are we seeing an attack with a Vmon here? No, we're not. We're seeing a Matashita come down. And look, this can't be James's goal here. We've got lots of, and don't get me wrong, right? Cherubimon is a deck that absolutely loves Tamers, all right? It is a deck which is big on Tamers, but at some point you've got to start playing some Digimon. And unfortunately, that's not happening right now. So, what have we got here? We have seen a security card coming down. We have seen 2 Bushiagamon hit the trash, which is not ideal. That's got Rush. That's a very nice card. And it looks like we have a DNA Digivolution here up into Chimeramon. A card seeing a huge amount of play, not one we've seen so far. Chimeramon is a little bit silly. It's got every color of the Digimon under it. If it's got 4 colors, it gains 4,000 power. And when you Digivolve, you choose up to 4 of your opponent's Digimon to lose 1,000 power for each color you have. And we see another attack here. Do remember that when you DNA Digivolve, you then get to attack straight away. You unsuspend all of that good stuff. So David here is on the real fast start. Already gotten a couple security cards out. And now we actually see another evolution using that restricted hidden potential uncover card into the Imperialdramon, which is going to let him play a blue and a green level 4 from under it. And actually, as it stands at the moment, oh no, chooses to go for the level 3 Vmon, wants to keep the X Vmon so you keep hold of jamming, which I don't think is a terribly bad plan at all. Always nice to have jamming, know that you can attack into the stack without losing. So, and of course, because you played Vmon, the rule in Digimon is if it doesn't say play skills don't work, then play skills work. And that's rather lovely. So this is looking pretty good, quite frankly. This is looking very, very strong. And we see Elydramon coming down. David's actually got game on board. Like, as it stands at the moment, with everything as it is on the board and things could change, James has 3 security cards, and David needs to attack 4 times to win. And it really is as simple as that. So James here needs to get something down, whether that's a blocker, whether that's a Digimon to take David's off the field, or whether that's some kind of recovery, which is not something we see all too often, but it is something that could kind of come around. We need something along those lines. Now, we do see a Kaiser Leomon coming in here, and that is getting rid of Ligimon, though do remember that that armor purge does mean that it doesn't actually get deleted. You just take it down to a level 3, which is not the end of the world. I mean, it's not ideal. It's certainly not what you're looking for, but it's not the end of the world. We can roll with this. So... And I should mention that is, of course, as you can see, it's on Matashita, so we do have a hybrid Digimon there. It's one of the reasons why you don't mind too much having those tamers out. But as we saw, the first couple of turns of the game, yes, James is getting those tamers down, but David was building up a board and taking out security. There needs to be a little bit of balance here. By all means, get your tamers. I'm not saying don't get your tamers, but I am saying that there comes a point where you need something a little bit more. So we do see Deathclaw coming down here. That's gonna be quite annoying, honestly. That's going to delete one of your Digimon, delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower. Chooses to get rid of Kaiser Leomon there. And then David's kind of still in a pretty good position, honestly. You know, gets to unsuspend his Digimon the unsuspend phase, bring Uppamon out into the raising area. Uppamon's looking quite nice, goes into a Vmon straight away. And David doesn't have game on the board, but David is close at this stage to winning. You got the Imperialdramon's going to attack now. Remember that, you know, you draw a card, but also it's got jamming, although it's a third analog boy. So that's that's a lot of analog boys coming out there. So we do see Kimura down, and then Vmon's going to attack into the security. That's actually a blinding ray. And then we see an ex-Vmon coming down, and oh, and then we've got a Stingmon. And are we going to see a DNA Digivolution? We are going to see a DNA Digivolution, and that should mean that the Imperialdramon can attack into the stack, taking out the last security card, which is the Karikamiya. Then it unsuspends, attacks again, and David takes a very quick game 1. That was, and we've seen this, right? The Imperialdramon does this. It is one of these very fast, consistent decks. That was very, very strong from David there. And we've seen, I mean, I think it's not an exaggeration to say that so far, Imperialdramon is the star of the show so far. In the first 5 rounds, it really is that Imperialdramon which has been, more than any other card, the one which is shaping these games. Imperialdramon is nice, and certainly, you know, the Dragon mode from the starter deck, the one that actually played 2 level 4s, has clearly provided a lot of value. But the amount of times we've seen that DNA Digivolution into a Imperialdramon so that you can then attack and then unspend and attack again. There was, I don't believe, I could be wrong, I don't believe there was an ex-Vmon there, so there is a chance that could have failed, that Imperialdramon could have got deleted, but it was all a moot point in the end because it was actually a tamer. Yay, James got to play a tamer for free, but actually it just meant that he lost the game, so unfortunately at that stage it was not an ideal scenario. So David takes a quick 1-0 lead, but this is the thing we've seen today. Other than with the yellow hybrid, and I think it's fair to say they are a very different beast, we found that these games aren't going to time. Generally speaking, we've got plenty of time. We're not a third of the way through the timer, and we're going into game 2. We're in a format at the moment where outside of yellow hybrid and a couple of other decks, we're generally seeing these games being kind of 15 minutes or less. So that means that we're getting lots of proper results. And I like that. It's nice when we can have 3 proper games. Nobody really likes ties. Ties aren't fun. And worth reminding that in Digimon, intentional draws are not allowed. They are not allowed for in the rules. They can be punished. So don't be doing that. So here we've got Salamon coming down onto the Uppamon, I believe it was. We see a Karikamiya hit the field, and then it's back over to David. Gets a Vmon onto his Digitama. And then we've got a whole bunch of other options coming up there in the hand. So what have we got? There is a Vmon. It looks like the Vmon's just going to be hard cast there. Of course, what we see is, you get to look at the top 4 cards of your deck, find a dual color. Blue Digimon doesn't actually hit one, which is honestly very upsetting, but that's the way it goes. We see this a lot in Digimon, these skills which look at the top X cards of your deck and find a certain kind of thing. It's a very common skill. It's risky. And you can build your deck to mitigate that risk a little bit, but sometimes you're just going to get unlucky. Now, we do see a Magnamon coming down, and it's kind of sad to see this not get its skill, but it's still a blocker with Armor Purge. So make no mistake about it, that Magnamon is still going to be a very good card. I don't think it's quite reached Rapidmon levels in terms of these Armor Form Digimon, but it's in the same kind of ballpark, I think is fair to say. So it looks like we got a Salamon there, and it looks like that's actually attacked into the stack. Into a Hammer Spark, I want to say, but at least has taken out a security. So James takes an early lead here. And let's be clear, it's very early on in the game. It's one security, but that could make a difference when we get to the end. Last game did not go well for James. James did not do what he wanted to do. There's actually 2 different Cherubimon in the deck. We didn't see either of the Cherubimon. We didn't see the purple one from BT7. We didn't see the yellow one from BT8. James's deck did not do what it was supposed to do because James's deck was too fast, too aggressive. It completely overwhelmed. James needs to change something here. Now, we do see the X-Vmon coming down, and it attacks into the stack with jamming. Oh, and it's a Kaiser Leomon, so that's all right. And then we see, poor Salamon taken down by the Magnamon here. So David's in a really good position here. He's taken out a security. He's wiped James's board of Digimon. And don't get me wrong, we all know that, James is playing hybrid here, so that Karikamir could turn into a Digimon. But that's nice to have as an extra option. It's not the kind of thing you want to be relying on because you've got nothing else. So we do see a Vmon coming down. It does get a Davis and Ken, so at least we do get some value from that there. And I think that's it. I think that's the turn. So we do see Bushy Agamon. Now that is being evolved. Of course, often played because it's got rush. It can attack the turn you play it. But when you evolve it, it's just kind of an expensive level 3. But not to Digivolve. It's still a 0 cost. So it's not the end of the world. So we do see Matashita coming down here. That's going to be, another tamer that could potentially turn into a Digimon down the line. We're not there yet, though. Now here, David's got a lot of pressure he can put on. We've got the Magnamon. Now, that Vemon's not doing much because it's in the breeding area and the raising area, but that's going to be coming out at some point in the not-too-distant future, and at that point, it is going to be putting on pressure. He's already got the Magnamon. He's already got the X-Vmon. He's already got the Vmon. Now, we do see an attack. Do remember it's still got jamming. Oh! It's a tamer, so that means that is going to survive. That is going to be very useful. It is Koichi Kimura. So that's nice. 3 tamers are good. But once again, we see David kind of running away with this a little bit. David's got already 2 security down. We've got a big lot of Digimon out. Can still attack with the X-Vmon, which has jamming. And actually, I lied to you. I don't think that Magnamon does have jamming. It's a Vmon under it, not an X-Vmon. Oh, now we do see a Deathclaw coming down here as a security guard. Oh, and unfortunately, he is able to bump that Vmon, which is it's not ideal. But honestly, David's on a tear. We see Lydramon being played, puts the memory back to 0. That's another one of those Armor Purge Digimon. And now we are going to see a DNA Digivolution into Imperialdramon again. And we're going to attack. And do we have an X-Vmon in there? I don't believe that we do. Oh, now it is a reinforced memory boost. Doesn't get the recovery, but does sit in there as a delay. Now we see another attack. And it is a Blinding Ray. And then we see a Digivolution into Imperialdramon Dragon mode, and that should pretty much have sewn up the game for David at this point, because that lets him play 2 Digimon out. So David's now got 3 Digimon plus a 4th that can come out from the raising area, and he's only got to attack. He's got to get 1 attack through until he wins the game. James's deck here, all we've really seen is a bunch of Tamers and option cards. We've not really seen many Digimon at all in 2 games. We've not seen a Cherubimon other than hitting the trash. And like I say, it's not one of the decks I was expecting to see that much of coming into the tournament. Certainly wasn't really expecting it at 4-0. You know, we're expecting things like Armor Rush and Imperialdramon and Mastermon and Yellow Hybrid, Next Antibody, things of that nature. It's a really awesome thing to see James at 4-0 with Cherubimon, but I think we might have gotten to the point here where it's this game is not going to be lasting all that much longer. David's just got to get 1 attack through, and then it looks like he's going to be able to win this game, and having won the first game, that is going to give a 2-0 victory. So he's sitting there on free memory. Now we do see reinforced memory boost coming out. The Magnamon, I should say, blocked the Bushy Agamon. That's why it hit the trash. We see Kaiser Leomon coming out on top of a Tamer. And I don't even really know what... I mean, essentially what James has got to do is get rid of the 3 Digimon on the board and get a blocker out. Because remember, you can't use skills against Digimon in the raising area. So what that means is that honestly, all it's going to take here is just to see David bring out that Vmon and attack. So, Kaiser Leomon there. Looking to attack, can't really do very much, unfortunately. And I do get the feeling that when James passes a turn, that is going to be all of it. And I'm not sure what there is in James's deck that can really prevent this. You know, there are some games where, you know, you recover 1 and you get a blocker out and all of a sudden, you know, things are different. We do see that the Imperialdramon goes down. Then we see a Kaiser Leomon coming out. And then we see another evolution there into the... Let me double check the name on that one. We got Rihimon. 2 less Digimon. And now we do see the Cherubimon finally coming out. And this is the big boy. This is what you're working towards. When Digivolve, you can play a purple Tamer card from your trash for free. And then for each Tamer you have in play, delete a level 4 or lower Digimon. And then on deletion, for each Tamer you have in play, you can play a level 3 from your trash without paying its memory. But I don't think it has blocker. So out comes Vmon and attacks, and that is the game. Congratulations to David. James, I'll be honest with you, James got that a lot closer in the end than I thought he would. Was able to wipe the board and get rid of all the Digimon, but unfortunately, and this is why we see it so often, you'll often see players keeping a Digimon in their raising area, even when they don't necessarily need to. And the reason is very simple. They're safe. And sometimes, like we saw there with David, if that Vmon was on the board, James could potentially have dealt with it and this game would still be going on. By it being in the raising area, that meant that all David really had to do was avoid having a board wipe and a blocker, and then was able to end out the game, and that is exactly what we saw. So David moving on to 5-0 with that Imperialdramon, and it really does seem like that is a deck to beat this weekend. It seems like it is one of the top choices. Not the only one. I believe it was Armor Rush that actually won in Latin America few days ago. I want to say that's where it was. And, you know, we all know how good Yellow Hybrid is. X-Antibody is very much out there. But this blue-green Imperialdramon, we've seen it a bunch on stream already, and it was a mirror match round 1. It really does seem to be one of the strongest decks in the format, absolutely one of the contenders. And it's the kind of deck where if you've come to this tournament, you basically need to have a plan for it. If you don't have a plan for blue-green Imperialdramon, you're not going to win this tournament. It's too big. You're not going to be able to avoid it. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Game 1... we saw that the Cherubimon deck just got absolutely just rushed. It could not do very much. Game 2, it got a little bit closer. When Cherubimon hit the field, you almost felt like maybe but unfortunately at that stage, just a little bit too far behind. Having said that, when you start the day at 4-0, it's fair to say you're probably going to get a few more wins, so I don't think we've seen the last of Cherubimon, nor have we seen the last of Digimon for today. We've got 3 rounds remaining, so grab yourself a nice cold beverage, go and enjoy yourselves. We're going to be back pretty quick with round 6 out of 8.